Solipsism. It's basically a religion. It's when somebody believes that only their mind exists, nobody else's mind, and nobody else out there exists. Only your perceptions, your beliefs, only what you see is real and exists. And you can't be sure of anything outside of you. There's a book called The Course in Miracles, and it's basically solipsism. Um, Now, with this belief, kind of how it starts is you begin to believe that the things outside of you are illusions. So the world is an illusion. And I remember when I was younger, sometimes this thought would come to me where something would change in my perception. I'd be at school, maybe daydreaming when I was, younger, in like middle school age, sometimes maybe in elementary. And I would just kind of have this thought that, what if, you know, basically everything that I'm in right now is a dream and nobody else around me is really real, and something is just producing this like a machine, and I just happen to be witnessing all of this. Now that's basically kind of what solipsism is, and any kind of thought system there, with the New Age and many things like this now, you have a lot of thought systems that are teaching this now. They're teaching you that, everything is an illusion of the physical world. And this is one thing that A Course in Miracles does teach, that the physical world is an illusion, matter is an illusion, so therefore a physical body is an illusion, and it doesn't exist because God didn't create the physical world, because the physical world is a world of chaos, where kill or be killed, and life forms are killing to get life for themselves. And so the way that the A Course in Miracles solves this problem is to say, or attempts to solve that problem, is to say that God didn't create the world, and the world and everything in it and matter is actually separate from God. Now, it sounds good, but this is the old dualism of, say, Gnosticism and Neoplatonism. And what they're basically doing is, just by creating that idea, you're already creating a separation. You're creating a separation, and then you're coming up with the solution to fix that separation through the whole ideas and thought systems of A Course in Miracles. So that's part of the problem, because ultimately, in my belief, God isn't separate from the physical world, and buying into any kind of belief that is telling you that you're already separate and that you need to try to fix that, you're already kind of buying into this lie, which is solipsism, and Gnosticism and all of these other ideas. So what happens is, you believe that the world is such an illusion that, everything can become so not real that you can end up in a very bad place, because, nothing is real. So therefore, why do anything? All of these things that most people would call evil taking place, well, why stand up and why try to do anything? They're all just illusions. I don't need to do anything. So I think ultimately people that buy into this, they don't realize that this kind of thought system really kind of turns you into a coward. And it really takes away from the masculine side of everything that likes to take action and likes to do things. And of course, that should be moved by love and by care. And that's what we see with this whole solipsism idea, though. And it's very destructive. And, you know, if nothing exists and you can't even ever know anything, because that's the problem with believing that everything outside of me is such an illusion that I can't ever really even know anything. So that kind of really does lead you into kind of a dark place, if you really believe into that. And I just don't see how it has any basis in reality. I think it can lead people into a lot of mental issues, psychosis, and a lot of problems. So, solipsism is really just another way of saying that I am God, because you're the only one that exists. Nobody else exists around you. They would all just be illusions. That's what you would believe. That every single person, I'm creating them. Like I'm creating everything that I see in my mind, and I can't even be sure that any of this stuff out here even exists. It's all just kind of a game, a playground that's just that's just there kind of for my fun and my amusement. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy, really egoic when you think about it, because you're basically saying that I am God, and you don't even give anybody the benefit of even being real. So, that makes sense of how some of the things I've heard from people that, have all of these different beliefs. I heard things from people when I was reading books of A Course in Miracles, and I was talking with some of those people, and I think some of the people were also probably involved in New Age. But I would hear them say things like, well, somebody that gets raped, they brought that on themselves, like it was their fault. They brought that into their universe. And I could understand, why they would believe that, because they've kind of accepted this idea and believe into this thought form of solipsism. And I can understand why they would say things like that, and basically say that that person is to blame for that happening. And, just other things. I remember the whole Harvey Weinstein, and talking with somebody from one of the groups. They were part of the New Age or A Course in Miracles, one of those. That was what the guy said. You can't, don't say that. Don't talk about it like that, like in a negative light, that he did what he actually did. Don't be truthful about that, because you're creating more of that, because, you're God, and, you're creating it, and they're coming from the idea that you're God and you're like creating everything out around you. So therefore, you don't want to think anything negative. You don't want to think anything, what you actually see and what's actually going on. You don't want to say that, because you're producing more of that in the world. See, it's kind of this insane kind of a thought, because it's not based in reality. It's not based in any kind of truth. So it's this passing off of denial of actually what's really happening, because they've created these false belief systems about how to solve these things, and that's the way they solve it, just by, well, we won't see, hear no evil, see no evil, right? Just as long as we don't see it and we don't talk about it, then it doesn't exist. So it's pretty crazy, but there's people that actually believe this stuff, and pretty concerning. So I would definitely stay away from solipsism. I wouldn't buy in too much. If you read The Course in Miracles, or you're getting into that, I wouldn't buy into a lot of those ideas too much. Some of the ideas in there are good. It talks about forgiveness. It talks about love. But ultimately, even all of that, what the book is ultimately teaching you is that you ultimately come to find out you don't even need any of that. You don't need salvation. You don't even need forgiveness. You don't need any of these things. So, ultimately, it's kind of turning you into an atheist. And That's kind of the weird thing about that book. Um, it sounds like it's promoting one idea because it's using words like forgiveness and salvation and all of these things, but ultimately you find out that most of what you maybe think the book means about those words and what it's trying to teach you is not actually what it's trying to teach. So you got to be careful with that one. So that's my take on solipsism. So thanks for watching.